Welcome to the International Institute of Technology and Applications lessons on clinical research. In today's lesson, we'll discuss clinical research regulations and guidelines. Let's start with the fundamentals of government. We begin with law, also known as an act or statute. This is developed and passed by the legislative branch and signed by the president, and it's published in the United States Code. The next term is regulation, also known as rule. This is developed and published by the executive branch, and it's published in the Code of Federal Regulation. We will refer to this as the CFR. FDA Authority. This is derived from multiple laws and regulations. The focus is on product and product use. Why regulate clinical research? Well, this is to ensure the rights, safety, and well-being of participants, and also ensures the scientific integrity of the data. Good clinical practice, also known as GCP. These are standards for designing, conducting, performing, monitoring, auditing, recording, analyzing, and reporting clinical trials. GCP. This consists of the following regulatory bodies. We have the FDA, also known as the Food Drug Administration, the OHRP, known as the Office for Human Research Protections, and the ICH, known as the International Council for Harmonization. US FDA, Food and Drug Administration. This is a branch of the United States Department of Health and Human Services, and it regulates all aspects of the pharmaceutical industry, and it has a Title 21 for the Code of Federal Regulations. CFR Title 21. The parts that are applicable to clinical research, that includes Part 011 for the electronic records and signatures, Part 050 includes the protection of human subjects, Part 054, financial disclosure by clinical investigators. Part 056, this is the institutional review boards. Part 312, investigational new drug application. Part 314, applications for FDA approval to market a new drug or antibiotic drug. And Part 600, for biological products. CFR Title 21 continued. This includes Part 812 for medical devices, Part 807 for pre-market notification in respect of a device, Part 809 in vitro diagnostics, Part 814 pre-market approval. Then we have CFR Title 45. And that includes Part 170 for Health Information Technology Standards. Device classification. Medical device classes. Well, we have Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. Class 1 consists of general controls, and most of these are exempt from pre-market submission. Class 2 includes special controls. Here we have pre-market notification. And Class 3 requires pre-market approval, as well as pre-market applications. Device Class 1. These are general controls, sufficient to assure safety and effectiveness of device. Requires compliance with provisions on adulteration, misbranding, banned devices, GMPS, notification, and record keeping. Examples include crutches, band-aids, tongue depressors, X-ray films. Device Class 2. These are general controls and special controls. This is sufficient to assure the safety and effectiveness of the device. Devices which performance standards can be established. Examples include magnetic resonance diagnostic devices and ECGs. Device Class 3. These are general controls plus special controls as well as devices requiring pre-market approval. Insufficient information to support classifying device into Class 1 or Class 2. Device Class 3 continued. These devices are life-sustaining or life-supporting, for use of which substantial importance in preventing impairment of human health or presents potential unreasonable risk of illness or injury. Examples include pacemakers, artificial joints, intraocular lenses, and stents. Substantial equivalence. This has some intended use as predicate device and technological characteristics as predicate or device, or has same intended use as predicate and has different technology characteristics than predicate, but does not raise new questions or safety and effectiveness can be demonstrated. Significant risk device. This is intended as implant and presents potential for serious risk to the health, safety, or welfare of subject, or represented for use in supporting or sustaining human life, and presents potential for serious risk to health, safety, or welfare of the subject, or use for substantial importance in diagnosis, curing, mitigating, or treating disease, or otherwise preventing impairment of human health, and presents potential for serious risk to health, safety, or welfare of the subject. Note, non-significant risk devices is any device that does not meet the criteria for a significant risk device. 510K pre-market notification. This is substantial equivalence, and 10 to 15% require clinical data, performance testing, and it's usually confirmatory. This is a type of study dictated by the ability of bench and animal testing to answer questions, the amount of difference between the subject device and predicate. Form FDA 1572. This is a contract between the FDA and the investigator. Logistics such as names and addresses are included, and Section 9 includes commitments of the investigator. Investigator of Records, or the IOR agreement. This is for non-IND studies, and it identifies key personnel, facilities, labs, and IRBs. Also lists the commitments of the investigator. Commitments of the IOR. This includes compliance with the protocol, ensures compliance of IRB and consent processes with 45 CFR 46, report AEs, adverse effects, accurate record keeping and access, no changes to the study without permission of sponsor and IRB. This is a non-IND study. Do we have to worry about the FDA? Office for Human Research Protections, also known as OHRP. OHRP responsible for ensuring the safety and welfare of people who participate in HHS-sponsored research. It's under the Department of Health and Human Services, Assistant Secretary of Health. 45 CFR Part 46, and formerly known as the Office for Protection from Research Risks. 45 CFR Part 46. This includes the IRB, informed consents, protection of fetuses and pregnant women, protection of children, and protection of prisoners. 45 CFR 46, Subpart A. This is known as the common rule. It identifies protection of human subjects through the IRB/IEC, as well as informed consent. There are variations from FDA regulations. 45 CFR 46 concerns clinical research funded by federal funding and 21 CFR 50 concerns clinical research funded by pharmaceuticals. If clinical research under FDA is funded by federal funds, both 45 CFR 46 and 21 CFR 50 applies. The FDA rule is stricter, and the stricter rule applies. 45 CFR 46, Subpart B. Protections for pregnant women, fetuses, and neonates. Definitions. Recent revisions. 45 CFR 46, Subpart C. Additional protections for prisoners involved in research. This includes the definition of a prisoner, additional IRB duties, and permitted research. 45 CFR 46 Subpart D. Additional protections for children involved in research. This includes assent and minimum risk. The International Council for Harmonization, ICH. Guidelines for Good Clinical Practice. The objectives of the ICH guidelines provides a unified standard. It includes the EU, US, Japan. It facilitates mutual acceptance of clinical data, and it's developed in accordance with existing standards in the US, EU, Japan, as well as Australia, Canada, Nordic countries, and the World Health Organization. ICH guidelines. ICH has developed over 45 harmonized guidelines. ICH topics are divided into 4 major categories. That's quality, those relating to chemical and pharmaceutical quality assurance. Number 2 is safety, those related to in vitro and in vivo preclinical studies. 3, efficacy, those relating to clinical studies in human subjects. And 4, multidisciplinary topics. These are cross-cutting topics which do not uniquely fit into one of the above categories. List of relevant ICH guidelines and topics. Topic E1. This includes the extent of population exposure to assess clinical safety of drugs intended for long-term treatment of non-life-threatening conditions. Topic E2A. Clinical safety data management. Definitions and standards for expedited reporting. Topic E2B. Clinical safety data management. Data elements for the transmission of individual case safety records. Topic E2C. Clinical safety data management. Periodic safety update reports for marketed drugs. List of relevant ICH continued. Topic E3. This is the structure and content of clinical study reports. Topic E4. Dose response information to support drug registration. Topic E5. Ethnic factors in the acceptability of foreign clinical data. Topic E6 includes good clinical practice. It's consolidated guidelines. Topic E7. Studies in support of special populations such as geriatrics. Topic E8. General considerations for clinical trials. List of relevant ICH guidelines and topics continued. Topic E9 would be the statistical considerations in the design of clinical trials. Topic E10, choice of control group in clinical trials. Topic E11, clinical investigation of medicinal products in pediatric population. Topic E12, clinical trials by therapeutic categories. Topic M3, non-clinical safety guidelines for the conduct of human clinical trials for pharmaceuticals. Topic S6, safety studies for biotechnology-derived products. ICH GCP. This is a consolidated guideline for topic E6 that consists of Chapter 1, the glossary, Chapter 2, principles of ICH GCP, Chapter 3, IRB/IEC, Chapter 4, Investigator, Chapter 5, Sponsor, Chapter 6, Protocol, Chapter 7, Investigator's Brochure, Chapter 8, Essential Documents. Principles of ICH GCP. Conduct trials according to the GCP. Weigh the risks versus the benefits. Protect the subjects. Have adequate information to justify the trial. Write a sound protocol. Receive IRB, IEC approval. Use of qualified physicians. Principles of ICH GCP continued. Use of qualified support staff. Obtain informed consent. Record information appropriately. Protect confidentiality. Handle investigational products appropriately. Implement quality systems. Local regulations. These may have more detailed regulations that apply. Do not conflict with national regulations, and the stricter rules apply. Sponsor policies. This is part of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. It includes essential documents, source documents, and standard operating procedures. Internal SOPs. Standard operating procedures. These are detailed instructions describing the what, when, where, and by whom is performing an activity. Compliance. This is adherence to protocols, the monitoring plan, GCPs, SOP, sponsor policies, as well as local regulations. Investigator responsibilities. This includes investigator qualifications and agreements. This is qualified by education, training, and experience. Familiarity with protocol, investigational brochure, investigational product. Being aware of and compliant with the GCPs and applicable regulations. Permit monitoring. List of qualified personnel who are delegated duties. And this is an example of a delegation responsibility log sheet. Investigator responsibilities continued. Adequate resources. The recruiting of adequate subjects, allowing sufficient time, having qualified staff and adequate facilities, and medical care of the subjects. Responsible for all trial-related medical decisions. Investigative responsibilities continued. This includes communication with IRB, that includes approvals and ensuring compliance. Compliance with protocols, investigational product, proper delegation of duties. How can the PI be held responsible for what the IRB does or does not do? Document all interaction, be it verbal, electronic, or written, with IRB, including reminders of upcoming review requirements. Investigator responsibilities continued. Regulations require IRB is aware of changes in research activity. The OHRP finds that changes to research protocol were implemented by investigators without IRB approval. Additional investigator responsibilities. This includes maintaining randomization and blinding, as well as obtaining informed consent from every subject for each protocol or protocol amendment. Records and reports. This ensures accuracy, completeness, legibility, and timeliness of data. Data on CRF derived from source documents. Changes are made appropriately and allowing direct access. Regulatory authorities will inquire about source of study subjects. Did they have the disease under study? Did they meet the inclusion-exclusion criteria? Was the protocol precisely followed? Were AEs reported appropriately? Common Office for Human Research Protection's findings. IRB failed to review the research at a convened meeting or failure to review grant applications. Investigators failed to promptly report unanticipated problems involving risks to the subjects, to the IRB, OHRP, or the sponsor. Additional common OHRP findings include continuing review of research that was not substantive or meaningful, including a summary of AEs and unanticipated problems, the number of subjects accrued, summary of recent literature, findings, amendments, modifications since the last review, relevant reports and information, current consent form. Additional common OHRP findings. This may include an IRB that did not ensure additional protections for vulnerable subjects, or IRB members with conflicting interests participated in the review. IRB meeting convened without a quorum. That is, maybe a non-scientist was absent. Other common OHRP findings include the IRB review of NIH approved consent. So, any changes to the sample consent form related to risks or alternative procedures must be justified in writing by the investigator, approved by the IRB, and reflected in the IRB minutes. OHRP finds that the IRB lacks diversity or is overburdened by large volume. The level of staff support is insufficient. Members lack detailed understanding of regulations for protection of human subjects. Inadequate procedures for reporting of unanticipated problems. We applaud compliance. Compliance with the protocols, compliance with GCP, compliance with FDA regulations, as well as compliance with local regulations. Thank you. IITA is devoted to teaching, research, and mentoring students to solve societal problems. We'll continue next with Lesson 4.